My wife, she's been so troubled by you all this time. You're such a failure. It's hard to believe. Your sisters, don't you feel bad for your own sister? Despite it being our first meeting, the brother-in-law seems ready to pounce, accusing me of something I shouldn't be accountable for. Moreover, when he refers to his sister, is he talking about me? How should I persuade this man, who is clearly mistaken about who I am? I am Lucy, 33 years old. I spent my 20s dedicated to my hobbies and work. Just when I was about to get busier with a transfer, my father fell ill. My mother passed away a few years ago, and I haven't been in contact with my sister, Sophia, who got married and left home. I couldn't just leave my father, who was worried about me being single, and transfer. I moved near the hospital where my father was admitted and started visiting him daily before going to work and after work. I would visit him again. That became my routine. His biggest concern, though unspoken, was the discord between me and my sister, Sophia. In fact, despite being the only two siblings, Sophia and I were estranged. No, it was me who cut ties with her. From a young age, Sophia was manipulative and lied as easily as breathing. This continued even through high school and university. I actually got scouted by a top sports school but turned it down. She would boast about things like that even though she never engaged in sports. Sometimes she'd lament, "I won $3 million in the lottery but lost the ticket." Other times she'd claim, "A homeless man kindly returned the ticket, so I gave him the lottery money." She even once claimed to be dating a celebrity, becoming more cunning with her lies, creating doctored photos that looked like they were traveling together. The photos were crudely made, but as adults her lies started to have a malicious edge, often causing me harm. I lost a lot due to Sophia's lies: friends, lovers, jobs, and money. In my early 20s, I broke ties with her and left our hometown. I thought it was still possible to start over. I didn't speak a word to her even when we met for the first time in 10 years at our mother's funeral. Seeing this, our father must have felt sad. When I heard from our father that Sophia got married, I didn't feel happy. After years of being hurt and deceived by her lies, I felt nothing. That's why I didn't resent her for not visiting our hospitalized father, nor did I want her to. However, one day, I was introduced to a man standing with crossed arms in front of the hospital room as Sophia's husband. I heard about Sophia's marriage from our father about 5 years ago. Since he didn't attend our mother's funeral, it was my first time meeting Sophia's husband. "Are you here to visit father?" Feeling obliged to make conversation with someone who's technically family, I initiated a talk. The brother-in-law responded with vague words like "yeah" and a "well." Suspicious, but considering he's Sophia's husband, I convinced myself and entered our father's room. I brought our father's favorite luxury fruits, now that his dietary restrictions were lifted, and wireless earphones to counter his complaints about the loud TV. Seeing me and the brother-in-law together, a combination he's never seen before, our father seemed surprised. His chattiness might have been because he was happy with this unexpected pairing. I didn't feel bad seeing him like that. As visiting hours ended swiftly, I said, "See you tomorrow," and left the room. That's when the brother-in-law, who I thought was silent, finally spoke. However, his words were filled with sarcasm. "So you have money for such things." What does he mean? Is he talking about the fruits? There's no reason for him to say such a thing upon our first meeting. I feel uncomfortable. So, the man who married the liar is a sarcastic guy. Isn't it my business what I bring for my father? Though I think it's childish, I can't help but respond sharply. However, the brother-in-law is not to be outdone. "I don't think it's entirely up to you." His words, spoken without looking at me, are quite pointed. Normally, I would walk home, but I don't want this extremely rude brother-in-law to know where I live. I remember hearing from my father that my sister Sophia's house is about a 30-minute train ride away. The station is in the opposite direction, yet the brother-in-law keeps walking beside me. What is he thinking? Just as I'm about to hail an approaching taxi, the brother-in-law raises his voice. Are you trying to run away? Ha! Run away? Me? From what? From me? Why should I have to run from you? Don't I deserve a word? A word? What am I supposed to say to a man I've just met? I think we did introductions in front of the hospital room, and I'm sure I mentioned my name. What more is there to say? You are just as Sophia described. Hearing this, it all makes sense. Knowing my sister Sophia, who lies every time she opens her mouth, she must have fed him some story about me. Ignoring it is the best policy. I don't want anything to do with Sophia again, and I'm tired of being manipulated. As I raise my hand to hail the taxi again, the brother-in-law grabs my arm. How much more trouble do you need to cause? I've reached my limit. Let go of me. What trouble have I caused you? Taking advantage of Sophia's kindness. You're the worst sister. Explain how Sophia is kind and how I am the worst. I glare back at the brother-in-law, who is staring intently at me. He sighs heavily, as if making up his mind, and then speaks. The $30,000 you borrowed from your husband. It's time to return it. $30,000 borrowed from a husband. I'm taken aback by this. This lie is far beyond Sophia's usual range. She must have thought I'd never meet her husband, or even if I did, she'd keep lying. I'm sorry, but I'm single. Single? That can't be right. I lent $30,000 to your husband. You know about it, right? Where is this husband of mine? Where? At your house, of course. There is no husband in the house where I live because I am single. The brother-in-law looks around bewildered, probably more confused than I am. As evidence of his confusion, he reconfirms, you are Sophia's sister Lucy, right? Even though we met in front of my father's hospital room and were together during his visit, his doubtful eyes seem to accuse me of lying. I found out on my smartphone that something called a single certificate can be issued at the city office. When I suggest getting it, the brother-in-law's legs wobble as if he's lost his strength. What does this mean? Single? Is there another sister besides you? I shake my head silently, and the brother-in-law collapses to the ground. He mutters something and then, with a start, looks up. What about the Christmas money? Christmas money? To whom? To your children. Didn't I give it to them? Upon my repeated headshake, the brother-in-law insists further. Then what about the school enrollment gift? You remember giving the money, right? I shake my head again. Seeing the brother-in-law's face turn pale, I deliver the final blow. I've never been divorced, and I don't have any children. You know that can't be. This man must also be a victim of my sister Sophia's lies. I can somewhat understand his confusion. When I sit next to him and listen, the Emmy he was told about is far from the real me. Firstly, it seems the sister has always caused trouble, and Sophia had a hard time dealing with her. Whenever the sister caused trouble with friends, Sophia would apologize. When she caused a major loss at work, Sophia would kneel and apologize. But that's not all. The sister's parents didn't attend her wedding, but Sophia walked her down the aisle instead. This is because Sophia, a kind-hearted person, couldn't abandon her sister, who was disowned by their parents. However, the sister's husband is irresponsible with money, and she ended up having children in the midst of financial hardship. Not just one, but 4 children, despite never having worked properly. Those children are my nieces and nephews. She didn't want them to experience hardship. Feeling sorry for the unfortunate sister who married such a hopeless man, the couple decided to help. They then started giving Christmas money and school enrollment gifts for all 4 children, 4 non-existent children. Sophia is a housewife, so the money actually came from the brother-in-law sitting in front of me. But then the sister's husband did something outrageous. He had an affair with the wife of his company's president. The president demanded a settlement of $30,000. If he didn't pay immediately, he would lose his job. Despite his meager salary and having 4 children, without the couple's help, the sister couldn't even make ends meet, let alone pay the hefty settlement. A man irresponsible with money is irresponsible with women too. The sister's situation was so pitiful that, moved by Sophia's lamentations, the brother-in-law finally suggested, "Let's lend them $30,000. That was the story I heard from the brother-in-law. Whose sister are you talking about? I couldn't help but interrupt the brother-in-law as he continued with the story of this unknown to me. Even if he believed Sophia's story, there should be some limits. Continuing to pay without questioning Sophia's story, just saying, "Let me meet my sister," would have solved it. Then the brother-in-law, as if to justify himself, said this, "That's why I sang at your mother's funeral. I'll give her a piece of my mind." But then Sophia said, "I want to send our mother off quietly," so he backed down. Believing that Sophia is a professional at fortifying lies with more lies, her brain works overtime when her lies are about to be exposed. Having paid Sophia, believing her lies, the brother-in-law couldn't stand seeing me, who brought luxury fruits and wireless earphones for my father. So his resentment was, "You have money for such things but won't pay me back." I don't know what happened to the brother-in-law, who left with his shoulders slumped. I feel sorry for him, but what he does with the truth is up to him. Sophia is beyond hope, deceiving even her own husband, just as I was thinking that my father passed away. I was glad I could feed him his favorite fruits one last time. I was prepared, but of course, Sophia came to the funeral. She never visited him, yet she cried bitterly in front of his body. I was disgusted by her act. Seeing the estranged sisters, the relatives whispered among themselves. After the funeral, as Sophia was about to leave quickly, I stopped her. "Sis, don't you have something to say?" Sophia, unaware that her husband had visited me, looked bewildered. As I told her about my conversation with the brother-in-law, she turned pale, holding my hand tightly. Sophia pleaded with me, "Please go along with the story, okay? We're the only sisters we have, right? Please. If we're supposed to support each other as sisters, why did you tell such lies? You can lie all you want, but don't drag me into it," I said, but she just sobbed and kept repeating, "Please, please." I don't know why Sophia needed the money, but it certainly can't be for a good reason. Our parents are gone. There's no need for us to meet anymore. Please just go along with the story. Otherwise, things will get really bad. What do you mean by really bad? I have children, you know. What if I get divorced? They'll end up without a father. That's your own fault, isn't it? If you don't go along with my story, I'll get divorced. That means it's all your fault. I wonder how this woman with a habit of lying thinks. I can't even have a proper conversation anymore. When I turned my back to leave, she grabbed the sleeve of my mourning clothes and stopped me. "Actually, I have a boyfriend I'm seeing behind my husband's back." Her tone was different from her usual lies. This was probably the truth. As I stopped but kept my back turned, she must have taken it as a sign to continue speaking. The $30,000 supposedly loaned to my non-existent husband was actually paid as compensation to the boyfriend's wife. She didn't want her husband to find out, especially for the sake of the children. How she came up with the compensation was by fabricating that lie. But $30,000 wasn't enough to satisfy the boyfriend's wife, who kept threatening and demanding more money. She even forced our ailing father to take out loans in his name. A loan in our father's name, it's something she would do. I have children, and it was just a moment of weakness. I regret it, she sniffled and continued. So I think you should renounce your inheritance. I don't want to burden you anymore, and I'll take over Dad's estate. That will settle everything. Saying she didn't want to burden me anymore, Sophia broke down crying. 6 months later, after our father's memorial service, while I was sorting through our family home, Sophia asked about the inheritance renunciation. I've already completed the renunciation process. Sophia kept pressing me, really? Yes, really. You're being persistent. Oh, great, she said as she was about to leave triumphantly. Her phone rang, and she answered it with a bounce in her voice. I immediately knew it was her lover. Hi, my sister has officially renounced the inheritance. Everything's mine now. We can be together, right? It turned out that even the story about paying compensation to the lover's wife was a lie. She left her children with our father and used the $30,000 to go on a lavish trip abroad with her lover. Ah, she really is a hopeless case. I was fooled by her lies till the very end. There's no need for me to feel guilty anymore. I confronted her. Was all of that a lie? It's too late to say anything now. You've renounced the inheritance. Did you know there's a deadline for inheritance claims? It's been over 3 months, so no matter what you say now, you won't get a penny. Sophia laughed crudely. I decided to call the brother-in-law and tell him the whole story. Oh, are you going to tell my husband? But it's fine, even if I get divorced. After all, I have Dad's inheritance. My sister laughed loudly with a carefree face, smirking at me. Seeing this, I laughed too. Noticing my reaction, Sophia looked puzzled. I'm not naive enough to take your words seriously. I've done my research on Dad and Sophia. I confronted her. Dad was one of the victims of your lies. He paid off your messes several times. How do you think he managed to come up with that money, given his failing health? What? By taking loans. Loans. That means you've inherited his debts too. You'll have to pay them off. There wasn't a huge fortune from Dad to begin with, was there? Too bad. No big reversal with an inheritance for you. Wait, what's that? It's not in my name. I don't need to pay. Didn't Dad pay it off already? That's ridiculous. You said to yourself that there's a 3-month deadline for inheritance procedures, right? You've missed it, so now you have no choice but to pay off the debt. Clean up your own mess. That's so cruel. Oh my God. Sophia collapsed to the floor, sobbing helplessly. Later, I heard the brother-in-law slammed her with divorce papers and demanded compensation from her lover. Then the affair got exposed to the lover's wife, who also claimed compensation. It would have been fine if they could still be together, but her lover chose his family over Sophia. Now, burdened with compensation and Dad's debts, Sophia, post-divorce, found herself unable to see her children and had to live alone. But it's all her own doing. She deserves the hardships as a consequence of her continuous lies. I have spent my life being manipulated by her. From now on, I will live for myself only.